You're listening to the Sports Brothers podcast by Sam and Brian Dostal. Everything sports, all the time.
Here we go back, this is the moment, tonight is the night, we'll fight till it's over, so we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us, like the ceiling can't hold us. Here we go back, this is the moment.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Brothers podcast, as today is Friday, June 20th, 2014, and it is 11:12 a.m., and I'm doing the podcast by myself today, so you get to hear all my insight on all things sports here. Is Sam. He's taking a sick day off today. No, I'm just kidding. He's at the Travelers Championship in Cromwell, Connecticut. It's always a big tournament. He's mentioned on the show in the past that it's his favorite tournament of the year because he gets to go to it. He was there yesterday for the first round, and I'm not sure if he went to the Pro-Am on Wednesday. Yeah, he did. So he's been there 3 straight days. I don't think he's going there tomorrow because tomorrow is my cousin's wedding. Zach and Megan, congratulations. Both Sam and I will be in the wedding. Tonight we'll be going to the rehearsal dinner in Woodstock, Connecticut. It's a bit of a drive here, but we're more than happy to do it for our cousin and for soon-to-be cousin and cousin-in-law with Megan. So we're looking forward to that. Wedding is tomorrow around 5 o'clock, I believe. But today, got a lot to talk about, and we're going to be talking about a lot of baseball, as now that the NBA Finals are done, so obviously we're done talking about that, but we will be talking a little bit about the NBA later on the show. But we're going to first talk about Tony Gwynn, his passing, what that means to the game of baseball, and how much he did for Major League Baseball. Kansas City Royals, how hot they are. The Boston Red Sox, that would be in general. Just going to go, just look at the standings and just kind of see where the teams are at and the leads and the divisions and whatnot. And then Clayton Kershaw threw a no-hitter on Wednesday night against Colorado Rockies. Then we're going to go some World Cup. USA defeats Ghana, the Redskins' controversial nickname, and then, as I mentioned, a little NBA. But first, we're going to start off with Tony Gwynn. The Hall of Famer passed away this past Monday due to salivary gland cancer, and it's really unfortunate. He was 54 years old when he passed. He's been battling this cancer for quite some time now, and, Tony Gwynn not only was a spectacular baseball player, he was even a better person. He won the 1999 Roberto Clemente Award, which is obviously one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious award in Major League Baseball. It's it's a combination of being a good ball player on the field and then the community helping others, as Roberto Clemente did so many years ago. And Tony Gwynn, he played all of his 20 MLB seasons with the San Diego Padres, and he certainly could hit the ball. He only struck out 434 times in his career. And just think of that. 20 Major League seasons, only struck out 434 times. To give you a little perspective on that, the greatest hitter that ever lived, Ted Williams, as they say, struck out 709 times in 19 seasons. So Ted Williams played less, and he struck out more. And I think that's pretty remarkable. Gwynn was an 8-time NL batting champion, 15-time NL All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove. So not only could he swing the bat, but he could also play some pretty good right field. A 7-time Silver Slugger Award winner. His number 19 jersey has been retired by the Padres. It has been for quite some time now. And, the Tony Gwynn, one of the greats, obviously a Hall of Famer in Cooperstown. And it's sad to see him pass, like I mentioned, this past Monday, And he got the cancer from chewing smokeless tobacco during his playing days. And, that's certainly, it's not good for the health. And it's the leading cause or leading reason why he passed so early, really. Only 54 years old. Who knows what this guy would have done if he had lived a more, I don't want to say fulfilling life, because, he certainly did a lot in his time. But if he, lived to a Don Zimmer type age, who we discussed on last week's podcast, what more he could have done for not only just, I'm assuming he would have been with the Padres organization, but just baseball in general. You hear the comments around major leagues and how great of a hitter he was, how great of a guy he was. Let's go with some of those guys. Here's Brad Ausmus, the current Detroit Tigers manager, but he also played with Gwynn for 4 seasons in San Diego, and he was saying that, there are guys that thought that he could hit 400 in a season.
It seemed like the guy never made it out when you played with him. Everything he touched seemed to find a hole, and then his teammates are happy for him and jealous of him. So, but yeah, there was a lot of people talking about whether he could reach 400 or not.
And of course, when you think of Major League Baseball players hitting 400, you think Ted Williams, as I mentioned, who has been, named the greatest hitter that ever lived, and Tony Gwynn, he's in that category. I mean, his highest, he hit 394 in 1994, where he finished seventh in the most valuable player voting, but 394 and 165 hits, 475 plate appearances I messed that up with the 419 at bats. It was 475 plate appearances, but this is a guy that his lowest career batting average was 289, and that was his rookie year. He played 54 games, 190 at bats. If you just look at a stat line, every other year he's sitting over 300. Every year. So his last 19 years, he hit at least over 300, and that's remarkable. For his career, he hit 338, 1,138 RBIs, only 135 home runs. So obviously not a power guy, but he puts the ball in play certainly, and uses speed to get on base, and just really one of the best hitters of all time. He has passed. So some more some more responses around the league. Dave Martinez, the Tampa Bay Rays bench coach, says he learned a lot by watching Tony Gwynn hit during practice.
He was fun to watch. I used to come early when we were in San Diego just to watch him. He hit off the tee almost every day, and I used to come out there and just watch him hit and just watch him, maneuver the bat, see, just to see what he was doing, because he was that kind of hitter, So you try to learn as much as you can from him.
What a luxury it must be for a guy like Dave Martinez to watch a guy like Tony Gwynn hit. I mean, he said he would go before games to get there early. He'd make an effort to get there early just to watch him hit off a tee. I mean, a guy that hits that well, that's that fluent swing, and he can just learn by just watching. And just I'm sure he gave advice and what to do and what not to do and stuff like that. And just to watch him, I mean, good for Tony Martinez, excuse me. Or Dave Martinez, Dave Martinez. And, when you can just watch a guy like that, it's something special. It certainly is. And our last guy we're going to mention here, Joe Madden, Tampa Bay Rays manager, who coached Tony Gwynn in the Rocky Mountain League and in the Rocky Mountain Baseball League, talks to reporters about Gwynn.
He was an incredible hitter, and he's a very good basketball player, too. The guy can play some basketball. Nice guy, really nice guy, soft-spoken guy.
So again, that was Joe Madden talking about Tony Gwynn and his career and how great of a hitter he was, and he certainly was one of the best. And so we would like to give our condolences out to the Gwynn family, and hopefully Tony Gwynn rocks the heavens up there. All right, now to some current baseball. The Kansas City Royals. They've been playing some pretty good baseball lately. For those of you that have not been paying attention to one of the teams in Missouri, they did just come. Their 10-game winning streak was snapped yesterday by the Detroit Tigers in a 2-1 loss in Detroit. However, in that series, the Kansas City Royals, they took 3 out of 4. It was a 4-game series. It was in Detroit. They took 3 out of 4, and you can't complain with that. Right now, the Kansas City Royals, they are 39-33, and that's good for a half-game lead over those Tigers. And, who saw this coming? For the last couple of years, the Royals have been peaking. They picked up James Shields 2 off seasons ago now from a trade from the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's leading the team in wins with 8 this year. Alex Gordon, he was a top pick, in the mid 2000s draft. I can't remember which draft it was, but this team, you got to give him credit. I mean, Eric Hosmer, another guy that they picked up, only hitting .256, but he does have 4 home runs. Billy Butler, a guy that's been there forever. He's definitely a Kansas City through and through. I mean, he's only hitting .274. Maybe you look to see that average go up. But I mean, here is Billy Butler just explaining, just being happy that they're in first place this late in the season.
It's been a long time since we've been in this, spot. Definitely latest in the year I've been here that we've been in first. So it's a good feeling. There's a lot of games left, so it really doesn't matter. But to say you're in first place, it feels pretty good.
It's still a long way to go for the Royals. It's only June, but it's certainly a good sign for the Royals to be in this position because, they've been obviously so bad for so long. And, I guess you can kind of compare it to the Tampa Bay Rays. They finally got enough number one overall draft picks or, top 3 draft picks in the draft. And finally, they're coming up and they're performing. And, let's see if they can maintain it. They're not in an easy division by any means with the Detroit Tigers, who lost in the ALCS last year. The Indians, this is a tight race. We're going to, talk about the races in just a little bit. But, the Kansas City Royals, as I mentioned, James Shields has 8 wins on the season for Kansas City. And Greg Holland, 21 saves for the former Monarchs squad. 21 saves. That's got to be one of the tops in major leagues. And this bullpen really has just been phenomenal for the squad. And you look at their ratings overall for pitching in the major leagues. They're 7th in quality starts with 44. They got 14th overall in the ERA, 3.69. That's not 3.69. That's not terrible, but it's not great either. That like to see that maybe go down if you're a Kansas City fan. And then batting, it's nothing too spectacular. 261, 5th overall in Major League Baseball. But hey, they're winning these games. Like I mentioned, they're coming off a 10-game winning streak in which they took 3 out of 4 from Detroit. And let's see who they also beat as this is taking a little scroll down. Okay, they swept Cleveland. They swept the White Sox. They took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. They took 3 out of 4 from St. Louis. This team is beating quality teams. And, they got a 3-game series starting at home. It's a big homestand for them coming up. They got a 9-game homestand. They got Seattle, then the Dodgers, and then the Angels to wrap up June for Kansas City. So look for the Royals. Watch out for the Royals. I think it's not saying they're contenders quite yet. I think, at least for me, because as much like the Pirates say they got into the playoffs last year, but they were good for the first 2/3 of the season, and then the last third they kind of I don't want to say come back to reality, but they started leveling their games out and didn't make the playoffs. But who knows? But just wanted to mention the Royals to keep an eye on them because they're playing some good baseball there in Missouri. All right, now to the Boston Red Sox. They are now 34 and 39, 6.5 out of first place. Yet they have too many good problems, and I put that in quotes because they have 7 starting pitchers and about 6 outfielders for 3 spots. Obviously, 7 starters for 5 spots in the rotation, and it's kind of baffling to me. Obviously, this team won the 2013 World Series last year. They have the talent. They have the dramatic. As a couple games ago, they had the walk-off back-to-back solo home runs by Ortiz and Mike Napoli to have a 3-game sweep of the Twins. By the way, they only scored 5 runs in that 3-game sweep. They won 1-0. 2-1 and 2-1 again, I believe. So, they're struggling offensively. And looking who's pitching tonight, it's Felix Dubron. He's coming off the DL for the first time in quite some time, and it's going to be very interesting with John Farrell and Juan Nieves and the Red Sox staff what they're going to do with this problem. Good problem, I guess, as you mentioned. They got John Lester, who obviously is the ace of the staff. He's not coming out. John Lackey, folks. He had a spectacular game on, Wednesday against the Twins, and as I mentioned, that walk-off win. But it was 0-0 going to the top of the 10th inning. Lackey pitched 9 scoreless innings with giving up no runs. I believe he had 1 walk and 9 strikeouts. And his ERA now is down to 2.96. 2.96, and you got to give this guy an all-star. I'm going to get his win-loss in just a second, if you can bear with me. But Lackey, who would have thought that, 3 years ago when he first came here to Boston, 3-4 years ago, that, Red Sox fans wanted this guy out. He wasn't pitching well. He's 8-4 this year with a 2.96 ERA, 90 strikeouts. And who would have thought that by now, in 2014, we're rooting for him to be an all-star. Certainly, I mean, if he's honestly been the most consistent pitcher for the Red Sox throughout the season. He has 4 losses, but let's see, look at his last starts: 9 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts against the Twins. Cleveland, 6 2/3, 7 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned. Detroit, 7 innings, 3 hits. You look at his last 6 starts, he's gone at least 7 innings. Or at least 6 innings, which is good for a quality start. His shortest outing of the year looks like it was 5 1/3 against Detroit when he gave up 9 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned. But Lackey, this is the Red Sox most consistent pitcher for the Red Sox so far this season. Some other pitchers, Ruby De La Rosa. This is a guy that, if you don't know, he came over in the blockbuster trade with the LA Dodgers and sent Crawford, Gonzalez, Nick Punto to the Dodgers for Ruby De La Rosa, Alan Webster, and cash and whatnot. And De La Rosa, excuse me, let me backtrack a little bit. The Red Sox, they've already won this trade, okay, because they won the World Series. I mean, they clearly won that trade. I mean, excuse me, it seems my cough is back as it did in the first couple of podcast shows. But the Red Sox have already won this trade, winning the 2013 World Series. The Dodgers, I mean, they're sitting pretty right now, obviously, with Gonzalez and Crawford there. Crawford, I believe, is hurt, if I'm not mistaken, or he was hurt at least. But now if Ruby De La Rosa can pitch to what I'm hearing his capabilities, after he made his first career major league, or his first start of 2014, it was his first since 2011. It was against New York. It was a Fox game on Saturday. It was earlier this month at Fenway. He won 7 innings, didn't allow a run, and it was after that game where I was hearing some things, and Pedro Martinez, who worked with him a lot during the spring training, of course, was one of the best pitchers in Red Sox history. He was working with him a lot during spring training, and he was telling guys, he's like, this guy is going to be good. This guy is going to be good. And he's got a 96, 97-mile fastball. He's got a wicked slider, a nice changeup, curveball. I mean, he's got all the tools. And at this point, he pitched another solid 7 innings the other night against the Twins. I don't think you can take this guy out of the rotation. I really don't. I mean, you got Dubron coming back tonight, obviously, and Clay Buchholz, who was so good last year until he got hurt, has been really inconsistent this year, hasn't really gotten a rhythm this year. He's gone on the disables list twice already. I'm sorry, but you can't take De La Rosa out of this rotation. And obviously, you're not going to take Lester or Lackey. Brandon Workman, another guy. I mean, he's been solid. He pitched in the 8th inning of Game 6 of the World Series last year. He was a reliever all of last year. And he started in the big league club this year. Went down to AAA Pawtucket to strengthen his arm, to get into that starter's mentality. And now he's come back as a starter, and he's done a great job. So this is what I mean by having too many good problems with the pitching rotation, because you got Dubron, who the Red Sox do like. I'm not a big fan of Dubron. They like him because he's left-handed. So now, the 5-day rotation, you got Lester and Dubron as lefties, and then Lackey and others, the other 3 would be righties. They like that balance. But, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with all these guys? I mean, I guess you have to put Workman in the bullpen. To compare De La Rosa versus Workman, they've both been very solid. What do you do with Clay Buchholz? He's been so inconsistent. I mean, do you try to trade him? Do you put him in the bullpen? Because, he's already had some comments saying, like, I'm ready to go. Like, my body feels fine. I'm ready to pitch. I'm ready to start out there on the mound. But John Farrell and the pitching staff, training staff, saying, no, you're not good yet. So, we'll see what happens there. But a lot to think about with that. And then, Jake P was the other starter. He had a start. I mean, that's a guy. He's 1-4 this year. I mean, he's pitching solid. He only allowed 3 runs last night, and he gets the loss. Just some tough luck for Peavy. Of course, he came over from the White Sox in a trade, 3-way trade that sent Iglesias to the Tigers, who's of course is out for the year now. But Peavy, he's 1-5 now. He dropped the loss last night, but tough. I mean, he goes 6 innings. Before last night against Oakland, he goes 6 innings, 7 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He gets the loss. Time before that, I mean, he did go 8 innings, 4 runs, 4 earned. However, the runs came in the early part of the game. He pitched strong the rest of the game. He gets the loss. He's kind of running some tough luck. But maybe he's the guy that shifts to the bullpen. He's in his latter part of his career. I think it's time to really give De La Rosa and Workman a shot. I really do, especially De La Rosa. I'm a big fan of him. And, based on his, couple starts, you got to keep giving him the ball. You really do if you're the Red Sox. And lastly, I kind of ranted about the pitchers a little bit, but now the outfielders. They got Jackie Bradley Jr., Daniel Nava, Johnny Gomes, Brock Holt, Shane Victorino. Victorino, he's on the DL. Hopefully he's coming back soon. You throw Brock Holt in there. I mean, he plays every position. I mean, the only positions he hasn't played this year yet are shortstop, pitcher, and catcher. Who knows? I mean, if it's a blowout one way or another, he probably will pitch. I can guarantee you that if it's like a 17-2 game. Anyways, but Jackie Bradley Jr., he's not going to hit for power necessarily. He's still young. Hopefully that batting average goes up in years to come. But he plays a phenomenal center field. You need him in center field tracking those fly balls. Daniel Nava, he was hitting about 130, and he got sent down to AAA. He's come up now. He's hitting over 210. I'm not sure what his average is since he's come up, but it has to be well over 300. Johnny Gomes, he's hitting the same average as he was last year. He's hitting about 230, 5 home runs, 25 RBIs. But the thing with Gomes this year is he hasn't had the clutch hits that he did last year. He had some pinch hit walk-off hits. The base hit against the Mariners to cap off that 5-run deficit in the 9th inning last year. He hasn't had those hits yet. And that's when your 230 batting average seemed pretty bad. Last year you could deal with it because, he came through in the clutch. But so far this year, he has not. And Brock Holt, who finally has solidified the leadoff spot for the Red Sox, I mean, you got to imagine he's going to be there for the rest of the year. I mean, I don't see him going anywhere else. They just got to put him in the lineup any way they can. Shane Victorino, as mentioned, he's been hurt. Grady Sizemore, he was designated for assignment earlier this week. It's unfortunate. I really did like the signing in the offseason. They got him for about $800,000, I think. And, for a low minimum deal, what if he became an all-star? Obviously, that didn't happen. He only hit 220. So I would imagine, if I don't think a major league team has picked him up yet. Actually, I know no one has picked him up yet because I would know. But I wish he played well because I'm a Red Sox fan and I wish he performed well. But it's tough coming off 2 surgeries, not playing for 2.5 years, and it's not easy to perform at a high level. And then the infield, just real quick, Will Middlebrooks, when he comes back, what are you going to do with Stephen Drew, Xander Bogaerts, Brock Holt? You're going to play Bogaerts, okay? That's for sure. And you're going to play Brock Holt. Stephen Drew was a signing that I liked at the time, but now not as much because I really did like Bogaerts shortstop. I mean, he's going to be there for the future. That was the whole thing of not bringing Drew back because, you want to put Bogaerts in now at shortstop for the future and whatnot. But, say Victorino and Middlebrooks come back, what are you going to do with Brock Holt? I mean, you have to put him in left field, and it's like, okay, Nava, he's been swinging the bat well. I mean, it's all these theories and whatnot, but, I mean, bottom line is you have to put Brock Holt in the lineup. But honestly, I'm not the biggest Will Middlebrooks fan either. I mean, he can't hit for power, but he can't strike out a lot. Was that Mike Lowell? Yeah, that was when Mike Lowell was pushed out of Boston because Middlebrooks was hitting so well. He hasn't really done anything since then. I mean, he definitely, as I mentioned, is a power hitter, but he hasn't been consistent. I mean, his home runs are up there. Seems like he only hits them against Toronto, but they're up there. But it's like I said, back to the good problems in quotes with the 34 and 39 team, 6.5 out of first place. It's tough to see where this team's going to be, and like what do they trade for, and do they trade for anything, or do they keep a squad for the July 31st trade deadline? Who knows? But thank God, I mean, I'm not in the front office there. Let's see what Ben Cherington and John Farrell do for that. All right, Clayton Kershaw, he threw no hitter Wednesday night against the Colorado Rockies. Kershaw went 9 innings, allowing no hits, no runs, no walks, and 15 strikeouts. He's the first pitcher to ever do that in Major League Baseball history. The only base runner that was allowed was on a Hanley Ramirez throwing error at shortstop. And folks, if you saw it or if you didn't see it, you got to see it because it was a routine play. It was he had to charge into the ball a little bit. He got it in the infield grass, and really all he had to do was just, step fire and throw it to first base. He threw it well off the mark, and it's tough because it was in the seventh inning too. It's not like it was the first inning. It was in the seventh inning when everybody knew he had a perfect game going in the ballpark. And but you got to give Kershaw credit. He buckled down, he bared down, and he got the next guy to strike out, of course. And he ended the game on a Corey Dickerson strikeout. Kershaw becomes only the third reigning Cy Young winner to have thrown a no-hitter in MLB history. He joins Bobby Goodson in 1971 and Sandy Koufax in 1964. So whenever your name is put with those two Hall of Famers, you know you've done something right. And it's the 22nd no-hitter / perfect game thrown in franchise history, and the second this season, as we have mentioned, the Josh Beckett one where he threw at Philadelphia. But Kershaw, he was injured to start off the year, and yes, I heard some doubts, I guess. Actually, what I should say is there was some people at school at Eastern Connecticut State University that were, should I draft Clayton Kershaw because he's going to be hurt for the start of the season? Like, yes, draft Clayton Kershaw. Okay, he's Clayton Kershaw. He's the best pitcher in the game right now. Just because he's not going to be there for the first 3 weeks of the season, whatever it was, doesn't mean to take it away for the rest of the season. Clearly, I believe the last 3 years that Kershaw has been the best, and that performance certainly proves it for Clayton Kershaw. And as I mentioned, 15 strikeouts. That's pretty remarkable. And you look at his stats for this season, he has a 2.52 ERA, 7-2 on the year, and just really gets it done night in, night out whenever he starts. Clayton Kershaw, Dodgers pitcher, really like him. From Dallas, Texas. He's 26 years old. And so congratulations to Kershaw on the no-hitter. And now we're going to, as I quickly make a segue to just the MLB in general. We're just going to talk about the standings and where the teams are at right now. The Toronto Blue Jays, they've been one of the surprises, I guess you could say, I guess they have. They do have the talent, but now they're actually using the talent and winning some games. They're 41-33. However, they're kind of reeling a little bit. They've lost 3 straight. The Yankees just swept them in New York, so they only hold a half-game lead of the AL East. Baltimore 2.5. Yankees are 1.5 out. The Red Sox 6.5. And Tampa Bay, they're 12 back, which is better than 14, I guess, when I saw them last time. Kansas City, we already mentioned them. With Detroit, they're a half-game out. Cleveland 2.5. White Sox 4.5. Minnesota 5.5. Everyone is in that race. You look at Oakland; they have the most wins in the major leagues right now, 45-28. The Angels, they're 6 back. Seattle and the Robinson Cano team, 8 back. Texas, without Ian Kinsler, they're 9.5 out. The Washington Nationals, who were so good 2 years ago and really had a bad year last year, they're a half-game lead over the Braves. The Mets, they're in last place and they're 5 back. So you look at these standings, folks, and there's some tight races. There really are. Like I said, the Mets, they're 5 back and they're in last place. They're 7 games below 500. Minnesota 5.5. Boston 6.5. They're in 4th place. It's June 20th and there's some close races going on. Milwaukee, they have a 4.5 lead over St. Louis. Cincinnati 7.5. Pittsburgh 8. Pittsburgh so good last year. They were 1 game away from going to the NLCS. Wasn't meant to be though. The San Francisco Giants, it seems like every other year they're good. They had that stretch where they won 2 out of 3 World Series, and last year was their down year. This year's their up year. They're 43-29, 4-game lead over the LA Dodgers, who are 40-34. And really, we mentioned the Dodgers obviously with Kershaw and Gonzalez. It's Don Mattingly. You can't rely on a 22-1 streak like you did last year. You got to start winning some ball games. But let's talk about the Giants a little bit. And, Angel Pagan hitting 309. Michael Morse, a guy that he was on the Nationals and then he was on the Mariners last year, didn't pan out so well. He's leading the team in home runs with 13 and 44 RBIs. Hunter Pence, Obviously he was traded in the Astros from a July 31st trade deadline with 86 RBIs this season. Pitching Tim Hudson, another guy from the Braves. It seems like he might be washed up, but he revamps his career in San Francisco with 2.39 ERA, and he's 7-3 on the year. Saves, Sergio Romo leads the team with 20, and he is, seemingly, a fluent transition, taking Brian Wilson's spot from a few years ago now. And the San Francisco Giants team, watch out for him, obviously. And but back to the Dodgers, if you're Don Mattingly, you got to save your job. You have so much talent. Again, another good problem, in quotes as I say, is Crawford, Kemp, Andre Ethier, and Puig in the outfield. 4 outfielders for 3 spots. You got Adrian Gonzalez, the Gold Glove first baseman. You got D. Gordon, who can steal 100 bags a year. Hanley Ramirez at shortstop, who was the top prospect and can really hit the ball. You got Clayton Kershaw as your ace to staff, the best pitcher in baseball, as I mentioned. You got Jensen in the bullpen, wrapping games up, and you need to win now. You really do. You came up short in the NLCS last year against the Cardinals, and going into the year, your job status was iffy, and now it's also iffy again. So they made it to the NLCS last year. The Dodgers did. What does it take for Mattingly to keep his job? I don't want to go as far as saying to win the World Series, but it's tough to gauge that. It really is. Because it's not like NLCS is like a bad year. In a sense for the Dodgers, it's win a World Series or disappointment, but I don't know. For Mattingly's sake, he may have to win the World Series. He may have to at least get there, because if the Dodgers bring in a new manager, with the same kind of players but just a different voice, maybe that's what they need. But if you're Mattingly, as I mentioned, you got to win now. You are listening to the Sports Brothers podcast, and you can listen to our podcast show off our Twitter page at Sport Brothers, which has 35 followers now. And I'm not tweeting a lot from it, but I'm tweeting more often some just everyday sport things and whatnot. And you can look at our podcasts off our website, thesportsbrothersblog.com, which has had some polls, and there was 7 polls out there last time, or 7 votes, excuse me. And I'd like to send a shout out to Alex Lawson, because I found out last night that you were one of the regular voters for the poll, and I would like to thank you for that. Appreciate that. And who knows what the next poll is going to be? Probably who's going to win, USA, Portugal, which is my segue to my next topic, which is USA Ghana, some World Cup soccer. Last Monday they defeated Ghana 2-1 in an absolute thriller game. Yes, folks, I did pick against the U.S. I thought Ghana was going to win, but hey, I'm not complaining. The U.S. won. Clint Dempsey scored a goal in the 34nd minute of the game, not minute, second, which is the 5th fastest in World Cup history, the fastest in U.S. World Cup history. And it withstood that score for quite some time. Ghana tied in the 82nd minute, and then it was a John Brooks header from a corner kick that sealed the deal for the U.S. And, good for Jurgen Klinsmann to get his first win as a U.S. soccer coach in the World Cup. Obviously, the first game in any tournament of any sort, whether it's game 1 of the NBA Finals or, Stanley Cup or the Olympics, any first game, getting the first win is absolutely huge. You look at their next opponent, the U.S. They're playing Portugal. They're coming off a 4-0 loss to Germany. Okay, so they have a bad taste in their mouth. Now, I'm not sure if that's good for the U.S. or if that's bad for the U.S. The U.S. are going to be playing without Josie Altidore, which is a very, very tough break. He strained his left hamstring in I believe it was the 17th minute against Ghana, where he was going for a pass and he just pulls up and you could hold his hamstring. He had to get carted off the field, and it didn't look good. And it's no surprise that he's not playing. Clint Dempsey, as I mentioned, who had the goal, he broke his nose. But he will be playing. but just some tough luck. I mean, really, it's the two U.S. best field players. I mean, outside Tim Howard, and they're banged up in the first game. And as I mentioned back to Portugal, Ronaldo, he's hurt with a knee injury. He isn't 100%, but I think he still will play. I mean, at this point, you're 0-1 in the World Cup. You have to win this game if you're Portugal. It's a must win. So you have to have arguably the best player in the world to be on the field. To try make for him something to happen. But it's really two different mindsets here. As the U.S. are coming off a thriller win, 2-1, scoring the 82nd minute, versus Portugal, a team that's one of the favorites in this tournament, in this World Cup. But they lost 4-0 to Germany, as I mentioned. And 4-0 in soccer is like 15-0 in baseball. I mean, they did not play well at all. Germany was just, really just dominated the game, time of possession, everything. And, it makes you wonder, Portugal, they're going to come out with a lot of fire. The U.S. kind of need to withstand that. If they beat Portugal, though, I mean, this is the group of death. I mean, they win, the U.S. will go to the knockout round for sure. But I'm not sure, what would happen, like if they tie, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just, kind of let it play out, see what happens. But the U.S. right now with that first win over Ghana, that's a huge win. Of course, it was kind of a revenge game in a sense, as Ghana had defeated the previous 3 times in World Cup matches, where they knocked him out of the tournament in those 3 losses. But and just one last thing, I mean, you mentioned U.S. soccer. To me, you have to mention Landon Donovan. I just felt so bad for him. I mean, just watching the pregame stuff before the game, and Landon Donovan is sitting in an L.A. studio analyzing the game for ESPN, and I just felt bad for him. I mean, he was saying that he woke up this morning and he was nervous, and he's in L.A. I mean, he's not in Brazil. He still obviously feels like he's part of the team, which he should. He knows all the guys on the team and everything, and I just felt so bad for him. I really still think he should be there. Obviously, if the U.S. keeps winning, then people are going to forget about that. But, he was like a guest analyst for ESPN with Bob Lee in the studio in Brazil. And, he was going to come talk before the game, at halftime, then after the game. And just for him to be in L.A., I mean, you could just tell by his body language, by his face. I mean, he wanted to be there with his teammates. Unfortunately, he could not. But, that's the way it goes sometimes for you. So, as I mentioned, it's going to be 5:30 on Sunday versus Portugal, so a big-time matchup for the U.S. as they have a chance to advance to the knockout stage in the World Cup. All right, now we're going to go. We have 3 more segments, 1 football and then 2 about the NBA, 2 separate things before we wrap up the show. And we're going to talk about the Redskins nickname controversy. Now, this is something that obviously it hurts some people's feelings. I think it hurts the wrong people's feelings, to be honest. This whole controversy thing with the nickname comes about because Congress does not like the nickname all of a sudden. I mean, it happened in the 90s within the nickname and the logo, saying it was offensive to the American Indian tribe, the Redskins and whatnot. But, as my stance is, who cares? Keep it. Why? Because the Native Americans, they're not really speaking. There's not an overwhelming, population of Indians that are uprising, saying, change the name, change the name, change the name. So that's why I don't have a problem with it. If they don't want it, okay. If they, essentially revolt against the name and having a huge outcry about, there's thousands of, Indians, Native Americans, that want it changed, then okay. Then respect their views, respect their decision, their opinion on that, and change it. But that's not the case. The Redskins name has been there for as long as I can remember, and I don't see any point in changing it. To me, if you really think about it, the most offensive Indian name logo is the Cleveland Indians. Think about it. You look at that logo, what do you see? You see an Indian, okay, completely red-faced, with giant white teeth, an overwhelming smile. Okay? You look into that, that could be a little bit, derogatory, racist towards Native Americans. I think that's personally more offensive. Now I understand Redskins. It's I don't want to say targeting, but it's it's one tribe name, whereas Indians is it's not mentioning a tribe name or anything. It's just saying Indians. But hey, I mean Native Americans, they don't like being called Indians. They like being called Native Americans. Chicago Blackhawks, another name for out there with the Indians, Native Americans name. It's surrounded by the DC team, the Congress team. It seems like maybe because Washington, the Redskins are in DC, Congress in DC, they want to be represented by that name, some of them. But honestly, Congress, I think you need to worry about more important things than the Redskins nickname and logo. And I mean, I was having a conversation on Twitter with my friend from school, Patrick Murtha, and he's saying it's not my. He was saying that it's not my way. It's not my whatever to say that it's not right or that it is right, which in a sense is true. But I'm talking my own opinion. But if the Native Americans aren't outcrying about it, then I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I really don't. Again, my stance would change if the Native Americans have an outcry. Then yes, okay, change the name because they don't like that. But as far as because it got voted down. That's why this whole thing, it got voted down of not changing the name, so it's going to stay with the Redskins at least for now. There's speculation that maybe 5 years from now the name will be changed, the logo will be changed, but it's. I don't see the big deal in it right now. I don't, and that's my stance on that. All right, so we're going to go to our last topic, the NBA. We're going to talk about Kevin Love and Joel Embiid, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Kevin Love, there's some rumors stirring yesterday that the Golden State Warriors are interested in trading for Kevin Love, and they're willing to give up Klay Thompson, David Lee, and a future first-round pick for Kevin Love and Kevin Martin. Now, this would be very interesting. Klay Thompson, obviously, partners with Seth Curry and the Splash Brothers, the Splash Bros. Can certainly knock it down from 3-point range, but so can Kevin Love, and obviously he can get the rebounds. He's a good passer and all that. But Sam and I, we talked about this a couple shows ago, saying where would Kevin Love land, and I was saying Houston was an ideal spot. I do think that would be a good spot for him. However, that's through free agency. I think if he does test the free agent market, I think Houston would be a very, very good spot for him. Now with the rumors with Golden State's a pretty good option too. He's going to be in the backcourt the front court. I always confuse those two. In the front court with Andrew Bogut, barring he can stay healthy. I mean, if he can stay healthy, watch out for the Warriors. And then Seth Curry, Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green, another big man, and Andre Iguodala. I mean, that's a solid team. I mean, they were the 6th seed last NBA season, and obviously the West. It's obviously the tougher of the two conferences without a doubt, as I've mentioned multiple times. How much better the Western Conference is than the Eastern Conference, but I can see Golden State being a good fit for Kevin Love. Now the other question is, will Kevin Love sign long term with Golden State? Because Golden State, they could be taking that chance with if he doesn't sign, just like Dwight Howard a few seasons ago. Now he was traded from Orlando to the Lakers, and he didn't sign a long-term deal, and he ended up going to Houston. Is that going to be the same kind of deal with Kevin Love? Is he going to be traded from the Timberwolves to Golden State and then go elsewhere? But I mean, obviously we haven't the Golden State season hasn't played out yet, but the season for the Lakers and Dwight Howard is just a drama saga. Just it was terrible. But anyways, Kevin Love in Golden State, that's a pretty good ideal spot. That's not bad. That's not a bad spot for him, I don't think. And our last thing I'm going to talk about is Joel Embiid, the NBA prospect from Kansas, has a stress fracture in the navicular bone in his right foot. He will get surgery on it and could be out as much as 9 months. Now, this isn't confirmed, the 9 months. I just heard a guy. The name is slipping me right now. I mean, I don't think I heard him before, but he was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he's saying that these types of injuries could take up 9 months to heal. Now, with Embiid being only 20 years old, being younger, his body could heal quicker than, say, others. But, you look at Embiid now. He didn't play in the Big 12 tournament or the NCAA tournament because of a back injury. And now, today's 6 days before the draft. 6 days before the draft, he comes down with this injury with a stretch fracture in his right foot, and he's getting surgery on it. So, 2 major injuries within 3 months, and you're a young guy. That's to me. I'm not drafting this guy. I mean, there was speculation that he'd be the number 1 overall pick. I certainly don't think he will be now. I don't think he'll be top 3. I don't think he'll drop out of the top 10. I think there'll be a team there that'll pick him. But I'm not guaranteeing he'll be out 9 months. But 9 months would be obviously well into the NBA season. But I mean, and when he was at Kansas, I mean, obviously I didn't watch him, as much as as analysts and scouts did, but I did watch a fair amount. I do watch a lot of college basketball. I didn't see anything spectacular. I mean, the potential, I realize that, but still, I think Jabari Parker is the best guy in this draft. Me and Sam, we're gonna talk about that more on Monday's podcast. As next Thursday is gonna be the draft, June 26th. 8 o'clock on ESPN. So Monday we're going to have kind of our predictions and whatnot. We're going to be focusing the show on the drafts as Shabazz Napier earlier this morning, he got an invite to the NBA Green Room. So congratulations to him. I mean, it seems like his stock is rising by the day. And, good for him. Good to see UConn represented there. But, Embiid, I don't know. I think he has too many question marks at this point. I mean, he didn't average a double-double at Kansas. He averaged 10 and 8, 10 points, 8 rebounds, and I just think he has too many question marks. I mean, a back injury and a foot injury. I mean, come on. I mean, that's too many question marks to me. All right, well, thank you for listening to the Sports Brothers podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to me I went on for quite some time. Hope you enjoyed the show. You can listen to our show off our Twitter page at Sport Brothers or off our website, thesportsbrothersblog.wordpress.com. And Sam will be back on Monday. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about the NBA draft, and obviously sports need to happen. We'll talk about some more stuff there as well. But thank you for listening to the show, and hope you have a fun weekend, everybody.